The soundtrack of Odyssey is such a refreshing take on scoring an adventure film. There are 3 tracks in that list that I think showcase the best, the unique qualities of the music, shows the aspects that make it stand out. We'll begin with some very interesting rhythmic illusions that the soundtrack utilizes. We will cover the unique instruments that were chosen for the music. And finally, we will close the video with one of the most goosebumps inducing scene+score pairing that I have ever seen. So let's get into it. Let's start with Troy. The first thing you notice about the music is the rhythm. It feels like it's constantly speeding up, like endlessly ascending. And that's perfect for that scene, right? The Greeks are attacking Troy. Everything is getting increasingly more chaotic. And the music just keeps pushing forward. The music, of course, isn't speeding up endlessly. That's not even possible. So how do we achieve this effect? This is where things get a little nerdy, right? But don't worry, we'll get through it very fast. The music uses something that is called a recit rhythm. It's basically an auditory illusion. Imagine a circle, right? Because the rhythm basically goes in loops. At the bottom of the circle, you have a rhythm. Let's say this dot is a rhythm, right? And as it goes around the circle clockwise, it gains speed. It speeds up. And the other thing that the rhythm does is that it fades in more. It's more prominent, it's more louder, right? And at the pinnacle of the circle, when it reaches the top, that's where the rhythm is twice as fast. Let's say the bottom one we started with 100 BPM, and when we arrive at the top, we land on a 200 BPM. At the same moment, this first rhythm reaches the top. At the bottom of the circle, another rhythm starts, now with half speed, the initial speed that this initial rhythm started, so 100 BPM again. And it does the same thing, it goes clockwise around the circle, it speeds up, and it fades in. Meanwhile, this initial rhythm goes down the circle clockwise. It's fading out, it's being less prominent, and it also slows down. So by the time it again reaches the bottom, it's back at half speed, it's back at the 100 BPM. And that's basically the illusion. You think that the music is constantly speeding up, while it's just the different rhythms, different speeds are fading in and fading out constantly. Alright, class is over. What's interesting is that Nolan actually used this technique before in his movies. He and Hans Zimmer experimented with the same illusion in Dunkirk, but I think it works particularly well in Troy. Because the music doesn't just make the action feel fast, it makes the battle feel unstoppable, unending. Normally, when a music builds a climax, you know somewhere in back of your head that you will get there eventually. The harmony will resolve, we will reach the high point in the melody, something will happen, right? But Troy just keeps denying that arrival. It just keeps going and going and going, which makes the music very stressful. It's like the donkey from Shrek asking, "Are we there yet?" Except we will never be there, ever. I don't know where I'm going with this. This endless loop is just such a clever way of creating tension in the music. The music isn't simply accompanying the action, it's changing your perception of time. It's not trying to make the scene sound bigger. And that's a constant theme in the soundtrack, which is something that I absolutely adore about it. This leads us to the second track, which is called Sirens. And this one seems to have become one of the tracks that people have become particularly obsessed with. And I get why. Let's ask the question, how do you make sirens sound seductive? For a normal musician, the answer would probably be beautiful vocals, beautiful strings, choir for example. But the sirens of Odyssey go in much stranger direction. One of the most important sounds here is the olos, an ancient Greek wind instrument. And the olos is fascinating, because it's exactly that kind of sound that you're not used to hearing in modern Hollywood scores. It's reedy, it's raw, it's almost vocal, and Goranson has compared its role in ancient Greece to something like a modern electric guitar. Which is a pretty funny image. Just imagine a Greek god rocking an electric guitar. There should be a game about that. Wait, I have actually made a video about Hades 2 soundtrack. Go check it out, it's very cool. Alright, back to sirens. Musically, this makes a perfect sense. The sirens are supposed to sound irresistible. The Olos has this strange quality where it can almost resemble a human voice. It's familiar just enough for someone to be deceived by it. And that's a huge part of why that track works. But once you see through that illusion, they are horrifying, right? And you can feel that there is something a little wrong with the music. There is something unfamiliar, something strange in the music. But that can also be the same thing that keeps you listening, that keeps you curious. And that's exactly the idea of sirens, right? Very convenient. And this also touches an important idea behind the vision that Göransson had with this score. He's not trying to perfectly recreate what the ancient Greek sounded like. And he is not even making it like epic, right? There are no big orchestras, no big hits. We don't actually know what ancient Greece sounded like, right? We do have instruments, we do have descriptions, but we don't have a confirmed evidence that the Olos was played in a certain way, right? So Göransson takes these shattered pieces of information and combines them with modern production and recording. The result doesn't sound like some museum reconstruction. It sounds like a modern imagination of an ancient world. And I think that's much more interesting. Because in its core, Odyssey of course isn't real history. It's a myth. And myths don't have to sound completely familiar, completely real. And this leads us to the last track, Trial of the Bow. Yes, I have seen the endless memes with that. You have probably seen it too, right? The music playing underneath some absolutely mundane things and making it seem like the most absurd, important event in human history, right? Someone opens a jar. Someone successfully connects a USB cable for the first time. And well, it's kind of the point, right? Because the music takes a very simple action and make it feel enormous. And what's interesting is that it isn't just a cool musical cue, right? Look at what's happening in the scene. Penelope has created this challenge. The suitors cannot do it, right? And then Odysseus picks up the bow. At this point, we already know what's going to happen. The question isn't really, will he succeed? You know he will. But Göransson makes us wait for that. And wait and wait. The music holds back. There is tension. There is anticipation. And then Odysseus finally succeeds. And the cue explodes, right? But here is the important thing. The music isn't really celebrating someone successfully firing an arrow, right? It of course highlights the deeper meaning. It's celebrating return of Odysseus. The action is the moment where his identity is revealed. He's not just some random guy who showed up at the competition. He is Odysseus. And he is home. The bow isn't just a bow anymore. It's basically a giant musical exclamation mark. And that's why I think the memes actually tell us something useful about this cue. It became a meme because the musical language is just so darn effective. You hear the build-up and your brain immediately goes into, oh shit, something important is about to happen. That's a musical storytelling. Okay, so those are the reasons why I think those three tracks showcase the best, the unique parts of their music. I think it's much more interesting talk to diving into those three than just going track by track. Each one of those three showcase a different aspect in which Göransson manipulates the audience. Troy manipulates time. It makes an accelerating battle feel like it will never stop. Sirens manipulate attraction. It makes something strange sound so beautiful that you can't stop yourself from listening to it. And the trial of the bow manipulates anticipation. And together they reveal something much bigger about the soundtrack. The composer isn't really trying to make the Odyssey sound like the past. He's trying to make the past feel immediate. Ancient instruments are treated almost like a modern sound design. Ancient musical ideas are combined with modern production. A 3000 years old tale gets rhythms that are completely contemporary. We can also mention the Travis Scott controversy, right? There was such an outbreak about it, but come to think of it, it makes sense. The ancient bard was basically this superstar storyteller of his time, right? That's ultimately what I think really makes the score interesting. It's not really asking what did the ancient Greece sound like. It's really asking how does this 3000-year-old story would fit into our modern world, into our modern technologies and modern ways of making music. And I think that's just much more interesting. Thank you for watching.